Greetings. This is Our Money, a program on anti-corruption investigations, and my name is Dennis Bihus. Let's talk about sanctions today. That's a trend now. The U.S. has sanctioned Russian oligarchs, for example. Poroshenko said that Ukraine supports those sanctions, but for some reason, nobody notices Ukrainian oligarchs who trade with Crimea and operate their businesses there, disregarding any sanctions. We already did a general review of this problem, but today we'll talk about Dmytro Firtash specifically. Mr. Firtash has a chemical plant called Crimean Titan. You can guess its location. After the annexation of Crimea, the physically single plant was legally divided into two companies, one of them Ukrainian and the other Russian. Thus, while Poroshenko sanctions, Firtash supplies his plant through a closed port with Ukrainian raw materials and in violation of Ukrainian laws. He conducts business in Crimea, pays taxes to Russia, doesn't pay them to Ukraine, but he returns the chemical waste to Ukrainian soil. Next, Anastasia Shevchenko's report. The 45M, or oil carrier, enters the Kherson port waters. The SBU and prosecutors are already waiting for it. The ship is an important link of the oligarch Dmytro Firtash's ilmenite scheme, the illegal supply of ilmenite ore from mainland Ukraine to Crimea to fulfill the needs of Firtash's Crimean plant. The court has decided to grant the request and arrest of the Nefterudovo's 45M, or oil carrier ship. This is the first arrest of a ship which is part of a scheme that has operated for many years, because Firtash managed to circumvent both Ukrainian laws and Western sanctions. Ilmenite ore is extracted in Zhytomyr Oblast. Transporting it directly to the peninsula would be a breach of the sanctions. That's why, since 2015, the ore has first been taken to Odessa, and then it's exported on paper to the Russian port Kavkaz. In fact, the ore doesn't go to Russia at all. In the middle of the Kerch Strait, it's transshipped to Russian dry cargo ships bound for Kerch, for a port which was closed down by Ukrainian law. In this way, in 2016, Firtash's company Valky Ilmenit seemingly exported at least 130 tons of ilmenite concentrate to Russia. Are you aware that TOV Valky Ilmenit operates in your oblast? Are you so concerned about the incomes of Firtash and the occupied Crimea? You are banned from extracting the strategic resource. Why the fuck would you send it to the occupied Crimea? After the prosecutor's office reacted to the smuggling, the scheme got changed. Now, ilmenite gets to Kerch through Turkey. The ship arrested in Kherson did that trip as well. The owner of the ship says that he didn't technically break the law. Having received a transportation order, we have checked whether the cargo was legal to transport, whether the cargo sender and receiver are under sanctions, and to where we have to transport the cargo. The cargo went to Port Kavkaz. Thus, we didn't violate any Ukrainian legislative norm. What the captain is saying is true. He's just a small link in this chain, and a legal one at that. Every little link is legal, but as a whole, this is a chain of audacious smuggling. Breaching sanctions is the only way Firtash can save his lucrative titanium business. Without Ukrainian ilmenite ore, the Crimean Titan plant would stand idle. And the oligarch has big plans for the plant. Well, had. 2 years before the annexation, the plant's capacity was going to be doubled. Firtash had even invited Viktor Yanukovych to personally cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony of a new titanium facility. Currently, the Crimean Titan has around 2.5% of the European and the global market. We plan to get 8% of the world market. Then, Firtash had control over the whole cycle of titanium production. Ilmenite deposits in Zhytomyr Oblast, ore enrichment facilities, and the Crimean Titan, which turned the ore into the end product, titanium dioxide. Even after cargo transportation was banned, for 8 months the ore was still being transported to Crimea via the railway, unpunished, until the railway was severed by the civil blockade of Crimea. That's when the marine ilmenite scheme appeared. In 2018, ships sailing under the Ukrainian flag first appeared in the scheme. One of them was detained in Kherson. The chief mate of the ship agreed to tell us about the workings of the scheme. The ship crossed the border in Turkey, closed the cargo hold, and sailed for Port Kavkaz. We were then told to anchor at the Port Kavkaz roadstead, number 451, to document the receipt of goods with the Russian authorities, and that we were going to unload at the anchorage. According to the documents, both the sender and the receiver of the ilmenite shipped from the Turkish port is the same company, Center of Optimum Technologies. It's written in English there, Center of Optimum Technologies, Russian Federation. This company is the Russian representative of Firtash's Ukrainian chemical plants. In 2017, the COT sent more than 85,000 tons of ilmenite concentrate to Crimea. According to the customs documents, it was produced at the Irshansk plant in Zhytomyr Oblast. The scheme had 7 ships, which had completed a total of 29 runs. They used ships so old for the risky runs that one of the carriers broke apart right in the middle of a run. Despite the staunch support of the sanctions by the Ukrainian government and even the arrest of one of the ships operating in the ilmenite scheme, it seems that Firtash has some kind of magic umbrella. The amount of deliveries to Crimea has only increased in the recent months. Firtash is amassing large amounts of ilmenite. Now it's being stored near Yevpatoria as well as in Kerch. Firtash will surely need these stores of ilmenite. He is so well off that the Crimean Titan plant plans to build a new facility for 30 billion rubles. What is Ukraine left with? Hazardous waste. Firtash's Crimean business dumps it onto the territory of Kherson Oblast. After the annexation of Crimea by Russia, Firtash's plant found itself on the occupied territory, while the waste storage facilities were left on the free Kherson Oblast. It's less than a kilometer from here to the Titan plant, as well as to the nearest settlement, the village of Chernovy Chaban. The locals fish and even swim in these waters. On the territory of Kherson Oblast, near these 2 lakes, are the 2 waste storage facilities of the plant. While the Crimean plant was re-registered to Firtash's Russian company, the waste facilities are controlled by his Ukrainian firm, which has been withholding environmental tax for 3 years, while renting out more than 1,000 hectares of land for a ridiculously cheap price. In 2016, the revenues from the land plots rented by the Crimean Titan amounted to $43,300. But the local community has to pay a big price for these revenues. You can enter any house and there's going to be someone sick there. A lot of them paralyzed, their legs gave out. I have regular checkups at the oncological center. My father has been paralyzed for 25 years. My mother worked as a milker for 33 years, and now her legs don't work, they're swollen. She's got growth on her bones. We have only utility water here. Almost 1,500 people live in the village. The local school has 100 students. Most of the children are very sick. They, along with the adult populace, suffer from headaches, especially when the plant turns its pipes here. The smoke really affects it. The local hospital has also noticed the increase in the number of patients with cancer. After 2012, when the Titan increased its capacities, the number of cancer cases in the village saw a 50% increase. I've worked for 7 years at the plant. The white-colored emissions settle down together with the fog. If the weather isn't as damp, it doesn't settle down.
З туманом, тобто якщо немає такої сирої погоди, то він не сідає.
The emissions contain acid. Even the clothes that hang drying become spotted when the smoke goes our way.
І як вітер з моря, зачитається, як у нас, на дощ. Повертається, виброси, дим іде прямо на нас.
The company doesn't pay the environmental tax despite the worsening health of local residents, and it has an incredible reason for that. According to the Kherson tax office, the plant ceased to function after the annexation. Where did they get this from? From the plant itself. According to the plant's messages, it doesn't pay the environmental tax because the plant isn't operating. Do you want to know why? You see, because Crimea is occupied. However, an ecological inspection held in 2016 found the soil to be contaminated. For example, the levels of iron in a park were 142 times higher than normal. The excess of pollutants in the ground can lead to deterioration of health and in the quality of drinking water. A scientist from the Kherson hydrobiological station helped us to evaluate the pollution of lake water. The first test is from the lake that is closest to the plant. These are the natural freshwater reservoirs located nearby the settlements near the chemical plant. We took samples from here as well. The third test sample was taken from the school's water supply. We had the samples analyzed at 2 places, the Kiev Certification Laboratory and the Kherson Hydrobiological Station. Although the institutions had different opinions of the first sample, both laboratories had unequivocal results of the freshwater and school water examinations. Increased content of phosphorus and iron, also high pH. According to the results of the independent laboratory you sent these samples to, there's also an increased amount of sulfates, copper, and chrome.
Также выявлено значительное количество сульфатов, медь, хром.
This means that these substances couldn't get into the water in the natural way. The water from the settlement's water supply does not comply with health standards either. Chemical analysis showed an increased amount of phosphates. Oil byproducts were also found in the water.
В этой воде также зафиксированы были нефтепродукты.
That's Kiev, the Pyrrhus business center. Until recently, a half of the building belonged to Firtash, and that's where his Ukrainian chemical company is registered. We have filed an official information request to Ukrainian Chemical Products about its Russian branch of Crimean Titan. We got a really short answer from the Group DF company. All the questions about the activities of business in Crimea is an excessively politicized topic, and we don't comment on politics according to the information policy of the group. It's ironic that meanwhile, the Crimean occupational authorities have fined the Crimean Titan for almost $4 million to punish the plant for giving false information about its emissions. The Ukrainian tax officers are more loyal. They're convinced that the plant stands idle. Indeed, why would Firtash want to pay twice? What's proper buy work? It's when you're the head of an IT hardware company as your main job and the head of IT department of a big governmental structure on your second job. For example, of the Prosecutor General's office. Then you can plan procurement operation with one hand while increasing your personal profits with the other. Profit. And when you're exposed and the criminal proceedings are underway, you're not going to be investigated by the relatives of your business partners. It's a small world. More in Maxim Opanasenko's report. If you can't beat it, lead it. This ancient stratagem is successfully used by Ukrainian officials and law enforcers, with a small change. Why lead it when you can run a protection racket? From the beginning of 2017, the lion's share of the PGO's IT procurement contracts have been won by a young and previously unknown company, IT Platforma. The company, while lacking any experience in state procurements, has quickly won other governmental clients. The revenues of the company exceeds $5 million. More than $1 million of those was paid by the Prosecutor General's office for maintenance of informational systems, supplying licenses, and even developing the state register of pretrial investigations, which contains all pretrial investigations conducted by the law enforcement agencies. How can an IT market newbie get contracts like this? We got it after we found the company's office. It's a newbie only on paper. In fact, it's a young clone of a successful player, the player whose activities are being investigated by the PGO itself, Firtash Street. That's where the favorite IT company of the PGO is registered, an ordinary gray office building in Kiev. But it holds a secret. Having an office which is situated on two streets is very convenient. The two streets are Pecheniska and here's Pidharna, one building, but the addresses are different. But there's a single entrance to the offices, right here, on Pecheniska, and it doesn't only lead to the new PGO's contractor, but to a veteran IT procurement company as well, the BBMS consulting firm. After the Euromaidan, the security service and the PGO started to look into the BMS. The former suspected the company of failure to provide the services for which they were provided millions of state money. The latter suspected the firm of colluding with PGO employees and of overpricing at tenderings. In July 2017, the World Bank had its say. It announced a ban on participating in its tenderings to several Ukrainian IT companies for exposed cases of corruption. One of those companies was BMS Consulting. At the time, the IT community was shocked, actually. We had a big company that always got contracts, and then the World Bank. The fact that it punished and fined the firm was understandable, but the ban on participation in its tenderings was shocking. BMS Consulting gradually lost all the state contracts, but a month after the World Bank's announcement, the IT platform was registered by people from BMS Consulting, and in the same building. Because the beneficiaries of the clone firm are the ex-employees of the notorious BMS Consulting. Now let's take a closer look at the head of BMS Consulting, Konstantin Lysynsky. That's where the interesting part begins. We find his name not only in the company documents, but also in a declaration in the Register of the National Agency on Corruption Prevention. Lysynsky filed it after he quit the Prosecutor General's office. Responding to our request, the PGO said that Konstantin Lysynsky has worked in its IT department for 5 years. To make sure that the ex-head of the PGO's IT department and the head of IT platform is the same person, we have asked for a copy of the handwritten declaration. It has Lysynsky's signature, and here we have his signature as the head of IT platform. They are identical. Thus, Lysynsky worked at the PGO's IT department at the same time as the BMS Consulting was conducting its shady deals there, according to the PGO's own suspicions. Now, the PGO's ex-IT guy, together with BMS employees, earns money on PGO's tenderings yet again. We tried to talk to Lysynsky for a week. Wait, I'll pass the message on. Give me your contact number. Okay, sure. He didn't call back. Is Mr. Konstantin Lysynsky there? 1 second, please. He's not at the office at the moment. I think he's on a meeting somewhere. Suddenly, we were told that the head had resigned. Hello, is this the IT platform company? Yes. I want to talk to Konstantin Lysynsky. Everyone has already left, and he doesn't work at IT platform anymore. Do you know where he does work now? Oh, I don't know. Maybe in BMS Consulting? I don't know, I'm a cleaner. Everyone has left because of the holidays. Okay, I see, thank you. Losinsky did disappear, at least from all registers. Now, the director is one of the founders. So on Monday, the ex-employee of the PGO conducted business meetings as the IT platform's head. And already on Friday, he isn't the head anymore. Maybe because we took an interest in the matter? The BMS Consulting didn't want to explain anything either. But the new but old contractors of the PGO aren't only linked to the PGO itself, but to the National Police as well. The latter did some investigations of the BMS Consulting's case. In March 2017, the PGO took the case from the security service and handed it over to the main investigation department of the National Police. Among the investigators of this department is a certain Andrei Poliano. On social networks, he is a friend of Natalia Poliano, an employee of the BMS Consulting. Her sister Tatiana Poliano is leading a company of IT platform's founder. Seems likely that the police investigator looking into the IT company is a cousin of that company's employees, but we have to check that. We met with Tatiana Poliano by the already familiar office on Vienna. She answers our questions with reluctance. I don't want to be shown on TV. But she has confirmed the ties to BMS Consulting. Did you or do you still work at BMS Consulting? I used to, but I don't work there anymore. And your sister Natalia Poliano? No comments, honestly. To confirm that the police officer is a cousin, we deliberately state instead of asking. Your cousin Andrei Poliano works at the main investigation department of the National Police, which is investigating the case of BMS Consulting. You've worked there before, and now in the same office building you represent the IT platform, which makes money on PGO's tenderings. Please excuse me, no comments. Just say yes or no. No comments. Seems that we were right. But the investigators' relatives were not amused. The main investigation department got the case on BMS Consulting. Do you know this name? Both of your cousins worked there. Natalia Poliano and Tatiana Poliano. No. Are you not aware of that? And neither are you aware about this case being in your department? No. So you don't know, do you? Let's put it simply. The tendering activities of one company is investigated by the PGO and the police. People linked to it together with PGO employees create a new company and continue making money on tenderings. And it seems likely that they're making quite a lot. The IT platform has also been investigated for overpricing. Last year, the investigators found out that the firm sold equipment to Ashad Bank for almost $2 million. The same equipment was allegedly bought cheaper by the IT platform from another company. The other company bought it from another one, etc. Thus, according to the investigators, the price difference was more than $500,000. Meanwhile, law enforcers say that the investigation of the IT platform's ancestor is still underway. They did not provide any details, though, and the court hearings on this case have been put on hold for a long time already. But while the IT platform just follows the path of BMS Consulting by overpricing procurements and has connections with the law enforcement, the latter must somehow profit from this. But the investigator Andrei Poliano's e-declaration is very humble. His family doesn't seem to have their own flat in Kiev, but rents one instead. Here, in a rather humble part of the capital, is Tryashina. In January, Andrei Poliano's father-in-law, Leonid Vlachman, came to own 2 flats and 2 parking spots in Novopechersky Lipki, one of the most expensive residential complexes in Kiev. Upscale district, closed territory, guards, and its own infrastructure. We didn't find any business of the father-in-law. What we did find is the prices for flats of the same size on the secondary market. That's at least $500,000 for both flats. The underground parking spots cost another several tens of thousands. The building in question is brand new. Some of its territory is still being furnished and finished. Nissan Qashqai and Nissan Juke are registered to the parents of the investigator's spouse, but the parents don't use the cars, unlike the investigator and his wife. Here you can see Polyano's wife getting into her father's Juke. We saw her driving this car a couple of times more. The investigator himself could explain all this. A question about your property. Your father-in-law, a resident of Mariupol, became an owner of 2 very expensive flats in January. Did he buy them for your family since he doesn't live in Kiev himself? You don't want to talk to us, do you? I don't know who you are. I introduced myself, Maxine Opanasenko. You didn't show any documents. If I show you the documents, will you talk to us? I'm in a hurry. We're walking the same way. I have 2 short questions. I'm telling you again, I'm in a hurry. Ultimately, the conversation became absurd. Write a formal request. Justify your questions and you'll get the answers. Do I send it to your personal mail or there's an address? Which address? Well, you figured out some info. Figure out the address too.
Ну вы же установили какие-то данные, точно так же установите, куда это писать.
Polyano was in a hurry to get into his father's car, but either because of our conversation or trying to save as much time as possible, he walked for 3 extra blocks. Happens. It doesn't take long to figure out where to send our letters, because we gathered enough data for the anti-corruption agencies to find it interesting. We'll send them a letter justifying all our questions. That's all for today. This was Our Money. My name is Dennis Bihus. You can watch any of our episodes on our YouTube channel. Write us on social media. Email us if you have an interesting topic. See you on air in a week. Goodbye.
Побачимось вже за тиждень. До зустрічі.